Yes! What is up, everybody? Welcome to your favorite podcast. Make sure you hit like and subscribe and follow Call It What You Want wherever you get your podcast platform of choice. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Chuckwagon Davies and Brian McBrizzle McBride. And the U.S. started the Olympics with a 3-0 loss to France. Let's get some initial reactions. McBrizzle, I'm coming to you. What do you think?
Yeah, Jimmy. I thought the team had some good shape in the first half, pressed the ball decently well. There wasn't much that you could see happening offensively. I thought second half there seemed to be a little bit more, but then France just showed their quality and was surprised on the first goal. But that's definitely a much better France team than we are.
Yeah, they're pretty good. And two of their overage players scored as well. Though, in fairness to us, two of our overage players were playing center back in this one. I actually didn't mind how they performed, but for the most part, obviously we still gave up 3 goals though, Chuck. So your overall thoughts?
Yeah, I would say the first 45 minutes were really convincing. From a U.S. perspective, they took away the space underneath for Olise. You saw Lacazette and Mateta didn't really have that much of a chemistry between the two. So it was almost like they didn't really fit the way each other moved. And if Mateta had to drop deep to try and make the game, he said, go ahead. We'll let you do that all day. We know that's not your strength. As long as you're out of the box, you're not getting service, you don't really have to worry about Mateta. But we saw in the second half, Lacazette drops out into space, and that's how he gets that first goal. And I think Patrick Schulte could have done better on that first goal. To be beaten that far post along the ground, I think he was too close to his near post. And then that's kind of when you saw a response from the U.S. initially after that goal. They hit the post with Tolkien and the near post header as well that was saved. But then the wheels fell off. And we talked about this. How does the U.S. change the game if they go down? Who comes in? And Griffin Yao, you like his energy, but there's not a different profile coming off the bench that gives you a new look.
Understood, Chuck. Hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite Average to Good podcast. Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Chuckwagon Davies and Brian McBrizzle McBride. And the U.S. just lost 3-0 to the France, I almost said, in their opening game of the Olympics, their first time in the Olympics in 16 years. And it was 0-0 at halftime. And we gave up 3 goals in the second half. What's kind of crazy for me is that in the second half, I actually thought we played decent, at least on the attacking side of the ball. We were playing with some urgency. The combination play was good. And actually, after we gave up our first goal, I was curious, like, what is our response going to be? Mm-hmm. And I thought our response was excellent. And then within that response, we had a couple headers that should have been goals, and it felt like 1-1 would have been fair at that point. Then we give up a second, and then the game got away from us, and then we couldn't get back into it. Brian, McBride, McBrizzle, what do you think in terms of, let's talk about which area of the ball do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about the attacking side, or do you want to talk about the defending side first? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the attacking side is probably the place we need to talk about. Defensively, like I said, I think the 2 center backs did a good job. It took a little while for Token to get in the game, and then I thought Nathan Harler was effective. Busio, I thought was the better of the 3 midfielders. He was able to break lines individually, also connect with Duncan McGuire, and I thought Tessman and especially Georgi Mihailovic were pretty poor. Tessman, of course, didn't have a lot of time. When Georgie would show for the ball, his first touch was heavy. He played backwards all the time, and that's where listen. I think Georgie serves a great ball. He's got a really good shot on him. If you can find him space and time, he's effective. But in this scenario,
you can say that for every player in the world. You give them space and time, they're going to be great. McBride, how many players at our level? If you give them time and space, they're going to be great.
Yeah, I can put Walker Zimmer in there. Walker Zimmer, and he's not going to be great in that spot.
Okay,
you know what I'm talking
center
about.
Back.
I'm talking about a player that you bring in as an overage player, and I thought he was non-existent. If anything, he was actually caused us to go back instead of forward at times. Having said all that, I think knowing this was going to be our most difficult game, there was a few pockets of really good interchange in the second half. When we played the ball quickly, when we showed and we moved off the ball, there were some good interactions. We had some opportunities. So taking that away, I think, will be a positive. But the fact that once you go down 1-0, and Jimmy, you talked about it, that I think, or maybe you did, Charlie, I can't remember, but I thought Patrick Schulte reacted late to it, and it wasn't like where I thought he was like shielded from seeing the ball come off of Lacazette's foot. It was an odd first goal to give away, and then it just becomes so much more difficult for us.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that, and this is when we needed our resident goalkeeper, Tony Miola, to be involved. I feel like Schulte should have made a save on that first one as well. I know it hits side netting when everybody sees the highlights. If you didn't get to watch the game live, you'll probably be thinking the same thing. Schulte maybe should have done a little bit better there. Not to say I'm asking for Gaga Slonina to start over him, but I just feel like he should have made that particular save. The second one, another one, almost the same exact spot, this time being curled in with the left. It takes a slight deflection off John Tolkien. Maybe he can't see it. I feel like he's got to make one of those two saves on this, Chuck. Are you in agreement with that? And your thoughts on the defending overall?
Well, I had already said I thought he should have done better with the first goal. From that distance, it wasn't hit with that much pace. Yeah, it was accurate, but from that distance, you got to get to it. And so I think Schulte is definitely at fault for that first goal. Now, the second goal, yes, Paxton Aronson is out of position when he comes inside, and then he
tries
kind
to
of
cheat, right, Charlie?
Yeah, you feel like he gets lost. He gets lost, and when he gets lost, then there's confusion, and we've seen the back line throughout the whole game. They dropped off, right? They took away all the space. They dropped off, and then they also had the midfield collapse onto the back line, so they took away that pocket just in front of the back line. Now they were stretched, and now Tolkien was caught in no man's land. You got to step. And Tolkien doesn't step. He doesn't commit all the way. He does.
You could say that on the first goal, though, too, Chuck. Right? Busio comes across, but there could have been somebody from the back line that did end up stepping to Lacazette in a more meaningful way.
In that instance, though, he's a little bit further from goal, and he's turning away. So
agreed.
I think the intensity to close down doesn't have to be as drastic as it does as close to goal as Olise was. Olise was right there, and it's on a perfect angle for him to bend it in. So you have to get there. That's a whole nother thing. Now I want to talk to you guys about the response after the first goal. I love it. It was like, we're not done.
Fantastic.
The confidence of the group was great because the first half was more, let's keep it close. Let's not make any mistakes. We'll take advantage of some chances when we do, because the possession was 62% to 38% in that first half. 7 shots to 3, and both only had 1 shot on target. From that standpoint, you thought, okay, well, France may have the better players, but because they try and play expansive and they're moving guys out of the pockets and kind of throwing their guys high, that when they do lose the ball, they're pretty vulnerable. So from that standpoint, you said, okay, we're frustrating them. You could see Thierry was frustrated on his facial mannerisms, looked like he wasn't happy. The guys were like, oh, from the French standpoint, they weren't happy with the way the game was going. The second half, then you saw the U.S. start to connect passes and get involved in the attacking third a little bit more. But then after the second goal, I felt like Marco said, okay, now we got it, when it should have been stay calm. At the very worst, we're losing 2-0 because of goal differential. We'll keep it 2-0 because after watching both New Zealand and Guinea play before this game, I said, oh, these are both very beatable opponents, and I feel confident with our group to get results over both to advance in second place. But you can't let it get out of hand.
So I agree with you. Just to catch everybody up, New Zealand beat Guinea 2-1, which I think was a bit of a surprise result. A draw would have been probably the best result for us. But we play New Zealand next on Saturday the 27th. We'll obviously have a podcast to talk about that game as well. I'll give you a brief preview of that at the end of the show. But what I thought was interesting about the U.S. was that in the first half, if I think about it from a defensive perspective, I agree with you, Chuck, and I agree with you, Brian, that we looked organized, we looked set, and we wanted to play the game a little bit on our terms. We took away the things that they like to do. We pushed the ball wide, and we made it a little bit difficult to find the passing lanes. And you're right, Chuck, we did. We got to 0-0. What I thought actually hurt us was at the end of that first half, they started to play a little bit more direct, and started to ask a few more questions. And I was like, okay, how are we going to handle that? Because we're not doing a good job of winning that second ball, and they're creating some momentum, and they carried that off over into the second half. What killed me about the first half, and I thought was glaringly obvious, was that we lack transitional moments or making that key pass in transitional moments. So I'll slightly disagree with you, Brian, about Tanner Tessman. I thought in the first half he actually hit some good switches of the point of attack. He did turn over probably more balls than he wanted, given what he's capable of. But there were times where he hit that big switch over to Paxton Aronson in particular, and I think he hit one over to Kevin Paredes once or twice as well. And that unlocked the pressure. And anytime we unlocked the pressure from France, I was like, okay, cool. Now we can go with some real momentum. We can get some numbers in and around the ball. And that's where I thought we felt a little bit more threatening. And I'm kind of just thinking in the first half, we just can't see that enough consistently. And if teams know they can overplay us and that we can't play through pressure, we're going to have a really tough time. And this is more of a bigger picture thing. We're going to have a really tough time really breaking into that upper echelon of world-class teams if we can't break down pressure regularly. And I know that then when you see us, after we give up that first goal, we have that reaction, and maybe France drops off a little bit and allows us to have that space that we didn't have before. But I really like the urgency that we had there, and I want to bottle up that 10 minutes after we gave up the first goal, and can we extend that into something bigger?
Jimmy,
anyway, that's what I'm going to say on that.
Comment section, Jahir Vasquez. It feels like this team needs a proper 10 and a couple of better center backs. There's a proper number 10 who's producing in MLS, who's sitting at home like this, watching. And I couldn't agree more with you, because Diego Luna would have been the perfect player to get in the game, because like you both said, when we did win the ball, and I thought Tanner Tessman was pretty good too, just because he was asked to do more defensive work in his positioning more than being that creative presence that you need. And I think that fell on Busio in large parts of this game. And, you know, Busio, I think, would get it to the attacking half, and then maybe the ideas weren't as there as much. And same with Georgi Mihailovic. But I will say, the U.S. needed a presence with someone who could keep the ball in that attacking third area, who could, you know, probe the French back line. And you didn't have that player. That didn't exist. So from that standpoint, again, a lot of the same type of players in the midfield.
Yeah, Brian, you and I actually talked off camera saying, I don't know if Georgi Mihailovic was the right pick for an overage player. And if we brought in Diego Luna, he wouldn't have been overage anyway. But I wanted to get your thoughts on because for me, Diego Luna, there has to be a discipline to stay a little bit higher. And I thought Mihailovic was dropping too deep.
Well, I think he had to drop too deep because everybody was dropping because of the pressure. So that wasn't the issue. The issue was when Georgie got played the ball, he had zero confidence and his touch was off. The physicality side, he had always someone coming up his backside. He was either trying to draw a foul or going backwards. And more often than not, when he went backwards, we lost the ball and they just invited pressure on top of us. So, yeah, I think, you know, after the first game, and you know, hopefully he has a much better 2 games ahead, you've got to say that this was a mistake. And we've talked about it on other podcasts. And Diego Luna, not only does he want the ball in tight spaces, he's got character. Like, he's the type of guy that wants someone to kick him because he wants to show the guy, yeah, you can kick me. I don't care. I'm going to kick you too, but I'm going to go by you because I have that presence and I have that first step that'll take me past you. So, you know, this was something we talked about in when we saw the roster come out, and it's glaringly obvious now that we're missing a player like Diego Luna.
You're spot on, McBride.
Yeah, I think what's interesting too is that Ricardo Pepi had a hat trick today. I know it was a friendly for PSV versus FC Eindhoven. I don't know really the level of FC Eindhoven, but it is interesting.
Plus, we know that we couldn't have got him if we wanted him, right? We don't.
Well, that's the thing. Hey, what's going on with Ernie Stewart?
It's
right?
called the club PSV club stance. That's what.
What's with
Get
that?
out of here with that.
I can't tell you how many conversations I had with Ernie, and Ernie would be like, I can't understand these clubs not letting these players go.
Exactly.
I mean, this is an experience of a lifetime. And then he goes and doesn't let the players go. I mean, listen, if for Malik Tillman, yeah, okay, I understand. He's someone that's starting for you all the time. But Ricardo Pepi is not going to start for you. I understand you want him for preseason, but please just let him come. If that was even asked, I don't know that. So maybe that wasn't the question.
McBride, it was asked.
Maybe it was. You're sure?
It was asked 100% positive.
Okay. Well, then that's a shame.
And then I see a comment here from OM. Does Luna really make much of a difference? Yes. And if you watch the U20 World Cup, the prior U20 World Cup, Diego Luna was the difference for the U.S. And that's including Cade Cowell playing. That's Caleb Wiley. All these guys. Diego Luna is a different type of player. He likes the contact. He likes the ball at his feet. Like Brian said, he's comfortable in tight spaces and he can create. So yes, that's the type of player that was missing. Someone who's really comfortable on the ball. And I will say, Duncan McGuire, yeah, he works his butt off, but he's not a striker that is good with the ball at his feet and he's going to absorb pressure and bring other guys in. That's not his game either. So to have another option, for me, I didn't mind McGuire. I thought he went out there and put in a good shift, but
yeah, he basically.
If you're talking about just running with like a chicken with no head,
that was going to be part of it against France. I mean, we still have to put it under the context of this was not a game that we should fully expect to win. I wanted to be competitive, and at 0-0 at halftime, I'm thinking, okay, baby.
So you change your mentality there, right? So Jimmy, you could say you're not expecting to win. I don't think anyone in the world expected the U.S. to win today. Even the players probably had doubt. Of course, you got to go in and say, hey, we can win. But at halftime, it's 0-0. And you see how open and vulnerable France are and how frustrated they are because they weren't threatening at all. They had 0 big chances in the first half. So if I'm on the pitch, I'm like, hey, they're actually not that good, guys. We can win this game. So starting now, 45 minutes to go, what is your mindset? What are you thinking as a player, Jimmy, in that instance?
I'd be thinking I want Charlie Davies out here because I think we'd win the game if Chuck was out here. All right, we're going to take our first break and call it what you want. When we come back, we'll get into player ratings, and I'll take the back line, and Chuck or Brian will take the midfield, and then the other one will take the attack, and then we'll get into it a little bit more specifically. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back in to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies and Brian McBride, and we are breaking down everything that you need to know in the U.S.'s 3-0 loss to France in the opening game of the Olympics. And we're going to get into the specifics. And actually, I kind of want to – we usually go from backwards to front, but I kind of want to go from front to back on this one.
I like that.
All right, so, Charlie, you're going to do the forwards, the front three, as it were. And what I want you to break down is not only individual performances, you can give us a 1 through 10 on each of these players, but I also want to, so it's like an individual rating and then a collective rating, because there could be some talk that maybe Paxton Aronson isn't best utilized as a winger. Maybe he's better central. Kevin, listen, I watched a lot of the first half, or I watched all the game, but where I saw moments where Kevin Paredes, had he been on the left, I was like, God, he picks up the ball. Maybe he could whip something into Duncan McGuire, as opposed to having these wingers with their opposite foots coming inside to get shots. I just feel like that we don't utilize the size of Duncan McGuire. But anyway, I don't want to take any of your.
Jimmy, why don't you just take this? I mean,
I'm too late. No, I just got some momentum. I just brought us on the intro.
Brian, let me. He goes. Brian, let me do the forward. Okay, so the right back, Harriel, and then Robinson, then Zimmerman, and okay. What I will say is, I'll start with the collective. As a collective, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10.
5 out of 10 as a collective. Now, individually, I think Paxton Aronson, he had some moments throughout the game, but I'm going to give him a 6.
6 didn't seem very promising, but a 6 feels promising.
Does it? I don't know. If you're saying 5s and 6s.
You gave the collective a 5. Yeah, I'm just wondering how bad are the other two going to be.
Yeah, exactly. Keep going.
So Paredes, I give him a 6.5, and I'd give Duncan a 5.5. And so here's my thinking behind the grades here. I think you're spot on with the misuse of both Paredes and Paxton Aronson with their positioning. Paxton would, on the left, always come inside. He's not going down. He's not giving you width down that left side. And because the U.S. was so focused on defending first and limiting France, you saw how timid John Tolkien was in getting into the attacking third. How often do we see Tolkien at the end line? Off the top of your head, could you give me a number?
Outside of his header that hit off the post?
Header, yeah. There's maybe one.
But I'm saying with the ball to whip in crosses.
Sure. Not
right?
too many times.
And then same thing with Paredes on the right side. You know he's comfortable getting his whole professional career. He's been a left back or a left winger. So to switch him onto the right, which is not his game at all, very uncharacteristic of him to go down the right side and use his right peg. So again, I thought that was a little bit of a poor managing from Marco in that case. And then Duncan McGuire, he's a striker that thrives on service, and he wasn't even getting the proper service. And then you say, okay, well, they're playing against a different type of team. Well, then you have to take into account what type of striker he is. He works his butt off, and you could see he was fighting, and you love that. But I want that from every single player on the pitch. So I need something more. Can he deliver with the ball at his feet? Can he dribble out of pressure? Can he cause turnovers and then make something out of nothing? That type of player. And he's not. He's a player that needs balls whipped in. He needs to be in the box, and we didn't see that. So then you got to start thinking about what can you do to change things up. And again, I go with a Diego Luna, who played as a withdrawn 9 in the U20 World Cup. So I mean, just give you a different look. And we didn't have it.
Give up
frustrated. On that. So here we go. I'm off. I'm done.
Listen, I had my Diego Luna pajamas a long time ago. I just
all right. I'm off it.
I'm off. Okay. Brian McBride. Let's talk about the midfield. Overall collective rating and individual ratings for our starting. Let's just go with our starting 3.
Sure. So I had Tessman at a 5.5. And by the way, for everybody in the comments, just so you know, for I think all of our bases is 6 is how you expect the player to play. And then, so if it's a little bit better than what you expected, or is that, Jimmy, you're giving me a face. Is that not right?
No, that's right.
Going on 5? Okay.
I was thinking about my ratings given what you were saying. It's like, okay, yeah, that's good. I'm going to use that. Yeah.
All right. So just 6 is the average base. And I thought Tessman wasn't near as effective as he usually is. He got caught and being pressed quite a few times, especially in the first half. And then in the second half, he wasn't on the ball very much, so much so they had to move him out of the 6 and get him some more space. And I thought then he was a little bit better when he moved a little forward. I got Busio at a 6.5, and I thought he was the one player that was able to connect with the forward line. And he did it sometimes individually, reading someone pressing and just taking a longer touch past that press and getting in. I thought he handled the physicality pretty well. The final third issue was more to do with when there was a couple times where he tried to play a through ball that got picked off, which my rating would have been better if those had connected. And then George Mihalovic, I had a 5, and I thought he was very ineffective. I thought he worked hard defensively. That's the only reason he got a 5. Of course, he had a nice shot when it was 0-0 and hit the crossbar, but you need more from your overage player. You need somebody to be, even if you're not scoring goals, you need to be influential. You need to take pressure off of your group, and I did not think that he did that. I'm a fan of Jack McGlynn. When he came in, I thought he was effective getting on the ball. He sprayed a few balls over the top and turned France around. I definitely would like to see Jack McGlynn from the beginning. The problem with Jack, and Charlie touched on it, is his pressing isn't defensively. He's not as strong. And so you can understand the hesitancy especially against a team like France. So
against New Zealand, though, could provide something different. The only thing is you bring in overage players, you're going to play them, right? So that's the issue, I think, working against Jack McGlynn. Okay, my back line, I got John Tolkien. I'll start with him. That dude was on the precipice of getting like a 7 or an 8. He almost scored, and then if he just would have closed that ball down for the second goal. Overall, I was pretty pleased, though, with his energy and his desire to make plays. I know he didn't get forward as much, so I'll put him in like a 6.5. It's a little bummed he didn't step out to that a little bit more with more urgency for that second goal, and we could argue both of the long shots kind of came in his area of the field, or at least on that side. The center backs, Miles and Walker, first half, I was like, yeah, these dudes are legit. They're organizing well. Team shape looked good. And then as we got stretched, nobody stepped to the ball. I know if I'm a center back and we give up 2 long distance shots, maybe one is not okay, but you're like, okay, it happens. But it happened again that we didn't go in step to it. I think that falls on them. And then obviously a little bit of a tangle up. I think Miles' player scored on that one. So for those guys, I'd probably go higher on Walker, like a 6, and maybe 5.5 for Miles because he loses his guy, maybe a 5 for losing his guy on the corner, even though, well, that goal could work against us in goal difference. And then with Nathan Harriel, he looked completely nervous to start, which is fair. I've been in those games before where you just kind of have to find your way. I thought he was 10 for throw-ins. That guy can chuck a ball, and it almost broke us through in the first half. But I thought he grew into the game. And so I thought I was impressed with him kind of working through a little bit of those nerves and found his way in. I'd probably give him a 6 as well. And we gave up 3 goals, so he can't be.
So we lost 3-0, and you giving everybody a 6 or higher.
Yeah, I'm being really friendly right now. No, 6 or higher. I gave a 5 to Miles Robinson.
Brian, help me out with his.
I haven't got to the goalkeeper here.
We lost 3-0.
The goals,
I haven't given. Listen,
the goals were not on our center backs, in my opinion. The goals were on our midfield. When they happened. Listen, the second goal was Paxton Aronson was trying to cheat. Right, he thought he was going to dummy it and the ball would go wide. Which
would be an area where that Chuck would have to rate him, correct?
Right, exactly.
Yes, thank you. Keep going, Brian. I like where you're going with this.
But to get pressure on the ball, that was why we had Tessman sit so deep, right, and make sure that there was nobody that could sit in that pocket. And I thought once we sort of expanded our game, we expanded it too much to the point where they then found that space. And so, yeah, I mean, the Lacazette, drops into that space. Could someone have from the center back gone and pressed it?
Yes.
That one, yes, maybe. But he's going away from the goal. The goal's there, and he hits this shot that the keeper should save.
I agree with you. So let's get to Patrick Schulte. My rating for him is like a 4, 4.5. I'll give him a 4.5. He's got. Listen, if you're going to win a game of consequence, if you're going to win a tournament of consequence, you have to have a goalkeeper that's making saves.
Yeah, Charlie,
so easy.
You triggered him.
The defender unit
talked about his ratings for the back line.
He said, "All right, guys, Schulte's a 2. Schulte's a 2.
He's
the
got to
center
save
backs,
the first
they
one.
were 7.
He saves the first
Schulte
one. The complexion
2.
of the game changes. The complexion of the game changes if he saves that first one.
Yeah, I agree.
Get off my back. Okay. Hold on. Now it's time. Hold on. Clean slate here. It's time for the most versatile performance, which is presented by Viore, a new perspective on performance apparel. So who is the MVP for us in this? If you can sift through the wreckage of that second half, we gave up 3 goals. Chuck, I'll come to you since you have it all figured out, apparently. What do you got?
I always have it figured out.
Yeah, who's
the
MVP?
MVP of the bet of the 11?
Yeah, we'll go the 11.
Asking me.
That's what I'm asking.
The
He's
MVP of the 11.
Yeah, he's trying to
go. Yeah.
No, he's looking at the comments to see who they're voting for.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna go with. You got to look at my notes here. You see all my notes. This is what for everybody wondering what I do during games. This is what I do. Okay. So I'm gonna go with Busio.
He doesn't have anybody. He went with Busio. I love it.
This is what I do during the game. It was a close tie between Paredes and Busio. Those are my 2 guys for this game.
I thought Paredes was excellent. He had this Christian Pulisic-like ability to draw. I don't know how many fouls in this game. That's valuable. I think that's a value, especially if you're feeling a lot of pressure. You can play it to somebody who can draw a foul and slow the game down. But all right, I respect the Busio shout. And in some ways, I thought Busio was driving more of the attack than Mihailovic, who was actually on the team to drive the attack.
But for me, it's level. Paredes and Busio had the same score there, so I would hand a co-player of the night award to these 2 for the 3-0 loss to France.
Okay, I respect it. How about you, Brian?
Yeah, I would have Busio. I had Harriel also as a very effective player. The one thing we don't talk about much with him is his ability to defend 1v1, and he did an excellent job for the most part. The only time it happened when the ball was given away, when I think Paredes had a loose touch and Lacazette came across, and that ended up from being the goal. He stayed out wide instead of possibly pressuring Lacazette. Other than that, I thought he was good. Like you said, little touch and go in the beginning, get his feet underneath him. But yeah, I'd have Busio or Harriel as my.
I'm going to concur your
most
sentiments.
versatile.
Yeah, most versatile. The MVP, the most versatile performance. I'm going to say Busio as well. He started in somewhat of a.
What do you know? All three of you.
Oh, we'll go with
Taking
Busio.
my thing, huh?
Oh, what? We have
from
eyes,
the very
Chuck.
beginning,
We have eyes. We're supposed to pick different people.
Taking my guy. Okay.
I thought Busio was excellent in finding those pockets of space. He's got a really good understanding of that change of speed that he needs to like take the ball and skip past the line to try to unlock some things. And I thought he did that consistently and more so than most of the other players. So I was impressed with him.
I thought you were picking Walker Zimmerman, Jimmy.
Well,
you said
no,
the center backs were phenomenal.
I
didn't say they're phenomenal.
I want to
first half though is I was impressed. Our team shape got a little bit too opened up in the second half.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Brian.
KY718 in the comments. That was my one concern about Paredes throughout. You know, I thought second half he was more effective, but he definitely fell over quite a bit. And certain referees aren't going to give you that many times. Now, some of them were definitely fouls, but he needs a little bit more physicality. He needs add a little more strength to it, just to suck the defender in and then go, because all of it was, just collapsing on him. And the only time he got freedom is when Harry or Busio connected with him. That was the time. So
Kai718 is a regular follower and respect because he's spot on. That's why Kevin Paredes has played left back and left wing back because of those same issues. He's not a winger because of the weakness sometimes getting pushed off the ball. And Busio also hasn't changed games. And that's kind of what we're wanting him to do, is be that decisive playmaker in the attacking third. Can he be
He's always going to be the connector
who makes that key pass, and can he maybe get some shots on goals? But Brian McBrizzle, this one's for you. Ariel?
Yeah.
Well, let's save it.
We got a break.
We got to take a break. Oh, no. Don't trigger him right now. Don't trigger him right now. That was the most versatile performance, which is presented by Thierry, a new perspective on performance apparel. All right, we're going to take our next break. When we return, we'll get into the question from Chuck, and we'll talk about the tactics. Marko Mitrovic versus Thierry Henry. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies and Brian McBride, and we are breaking down all things around the 3-0 loss for the U.S. against France, the opening game of the Olympics. Let's talk tactics. Marko Mitrovic, the coach of the U.S. versus Thierry Henry, the coach of France. We talked about it a little bit, obviously, but let's walk into it specifically. The score aside, well, let's go half by half. First half, I didn't think we created much going forward, to be honest.
Neither did they.
We were very resolute defensively, and I thought our lines were pretty good until maybe 10 minutes before the half ended, where we started to collapse on top of each other, and that's a sign of guys either being tired or that France finally found their way into the game and we're starting to control those pockets a little bit more and with more confidence. I think the game slowed down as well because the game started 100 miles an hour, and then they started to maintain that possession. And then I thought what would change was they started to play a little bit more direct, and I thought we struggled with that. Now, second half, obviously things change, and the goal is going to change the complexion of the game. So there's a lot to unpack here. Chuck, I'll come to you first then. What are you saying on the tactics, and who do you think got it right? Because at halftime, I'm sure people are thinking, we're not going to hire Thierry Henry as our U.S. men's national team coach. He's got all this talent, and he can't even score goals like their full team could at the Euros.
Yeah, and you could feel the frustration from him and from the players because Marko Mitrovic did a good job of keeping the lines compact and not giving them anything in the box or at the top of the box, which caused them to have to take these long distance shots, right? Shots outside the box. And at halftime, France had 4 shots outside the box to US's 0. And I think that was a great strategy from Marko Mitrovic in the beginning, just to say, you know what? let's keep it close. Let's not get stretched. Let them keep throwing numbers forward. And then as much as they get frustrated, they're going to keep continuing to try and throw different wrinkles at us, and they're going to leave themselves exposed. And they did do that. But we just didn't take advantage of any of those opportunities. So from the first half, I thought Marco did a fantastic job of setting up the team. But to a point where you're not really going to get anything from the attacking end, so to speak. They still create a little bit here and there, those, soft chances, half chances.
It was a good chance by Paxton Aronson where the goalkeeper had made a save with his foot, what I thought was our most dangerous chance for sure.
Should have went far post on that shot and not near post.
I know.
But in the second half, they needed that goal from Lacazette, and then you could see that the space started to open up for France. And that's when France is at their best, when teams can't sit back. And we saw that in the Euros. All the top teams in Europe, when they're playing against inferior opponents, they were frustrated. And once they got that goal to open up the game, then you saw what made them so good. What a lot of these teams, when they could get their 1v1 players and the movement and there was space, there wasn't any space for them to operate. And then you saw a lackluster kind of frustrated France.
And Brian, let's talk about that in the second half. What did you think maybe we got wrong in terms of the tactics? Because even when we gave up that first goal, which was, again, from distance, probably should have been saved or dealt with in a different way. But that response afterwards, I thought, what a hell of a response. Now, I don't know if that's a Marco thing or if it's the players saying, all right, we got to play on the front foot and actually get after it and play with some urgency. Either way, we looked great. And then we give up the second one, which then kills the game off. And now we're chasing. And then he makes some more meaningful subs. What your thoughts on the second half tactics in particular?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, especially the first half when we were without possession. We played a 4-4-2, and it seemed to really throw France for how they were going to break us down. And then when we won the ball, we went into the 4-3-3 that we're all used to. And I thought that switch up really caused them some question marks in the first half. In the second half, I think Thierry Henry made some changes. Those changes, along with dropping Lacazette more in the middle, more in the midfield, and in the open space, caused us a huge amount of problems. And listen, we talked about Tessman already a little bit. He's not this ball-winning defender who's going to run and close people down all the time. He can cover space for sure, but I think that's where. When you make those changes and you need another goal, you're most vulnerable right in that sixth position because you are pushing players forward now. And the one thing that I would say that we didn't do well enough was make sure that anytime we lost the ball, get that player back into, whether it was Tessman or whoever was covering for Tessman if he was out of that position. That was where we didn't have somebody, and it cost us the first two goals. And so that little tweak, I think, is something that you learn from this game, and you go into the second and third match knowing, listen, if we're pushing forward and we have to make sure that we have someone sit in front of our two center backs, because our center backs, listen, they were marking two men for most of the game, and then Lacazette dropped off, and I think that's where we sort of lost the understanding of how to defend together and find pressure on the ball when they had possession, because the first half was great.
All right, so let's talk about what I mentioned before, which is the wingers. We had guys playing inverted, right? So Kevin Paredes is a left footer playing on the right side. Paxton Aronson's a right footer playing on the left side. And I thought maybe we could have changed it up. Maybe it was at halftime. Maybe it was middle of the game. Like, let's put a left footer on the left side, right footer on the right side, and see what happens. And I just wonder if the game would have changed, or if there would have been a different complexion in terms of how we created space on that left side, especially as I mentioned before, we have a striker, a big guy up top at Duncan McGuire, who can get on the end of crosses. But when you have guys that are playing inverted, then we're not really looking to cross. We're looking to cut in and shoot. And so I wonder if we're not taking advantage of what Duncan McGuire can provide. So I've got two resident number 9s here, but I'm going to go to you, Chuck. What did you think about the tactics of the front three? And I guess teasing a preview a little bit for the New Zealand game, which we'll do in the next block. We'll talk about it a little bit more. Would you like to see something different going into that game in particular?
Yes, I definitely would like to see something different into heading into the New Zealand game, because I did get a good chance to see how they played and how Guinea just attacked from the wings, and they did cause a lot of problems from the wings. So, you want players who are comfortable going to the end line. But to go back to this game, I think it was a little bit of a, you sit with 7, defending with 7, and you kind of attack with 3. And so again, we saw Duncan McGuire on an island, and then you had 2 inverted wingers. So the service was not going to come from Duncan McGuire to the end lines and whipping it in, or early crosses. So therefore, he was largely ineffective as a goal scoring striker. As a defensive striker, he worked his butt off, and you give him so much credit for that, because you got to figure out a way to have some impact in the game, and he had an impact defensively. So from Paredes' standpoint and Paxton Aronson, I think they were played out of position, so you didn't get the most out of them. I like what Griffin Yao brought off the bench, his energy. He was one of the difference makers in the friendly in March against France, along with Cade Cowell, who's not there. And again, my biggest issue with this group of players is pace. Difference makers coming off the bench to give you a threat in behind who can, maybe you don't need Cade Cowell to start, but him coming off the bench, that's a weapon. You don't really have those type of weapons for the U.S., which is unfortunate. So given what they do have, maybe Griffin Yao would be better served to be on the pitch, and Paxton Aronson more central than in a wide area.
Yeah, decisions for Marko Mitrovic heading into that game. Again, we'll do a little bit of a preview in the next block. I have a question for you, Brian. It's probably a bigger question than the couple minutes we have before we hit our next break. But Thierry Henry, did you see enough from him today where you're thinking, yeah, I like what he's about, and I could see him on the sideline for the U.S. men's national team?
Did I see enough to get to that far of a decision? No, I didn't. But I will say I liked how he ran his team. And in the first 15 minutes, when the camera panned to him, he was trying to give a little tweak to his wingers and understanding where the space is. Because as I said, I thought when we switched to a 4-3-3, Busio was able to just cause a whole heck of a lot of problem with his movement going out to the wing. And that's how we sort of got out easy when we got out easy. And that little tweak that he made, after that first 20 minutes, we were no longer able to do that near as much, right? So you see those little things and you think, all right, he's definitely, of course he's got this grasp of the game, but being able to get it across to his players and have his players implement it, that's a great sign of a coach, right? And again, a little tweak at halftime with dropping Lacazette a little deeper this time, because probably a couple different reasons. Charlie touched on the fact that him and Mateta didn't really have that connection, and actually was clogging up space for Mateta. So overall, yeah, I thought he made some good decisions. The substitutions were good. I'm really surprised that Cherki didn't play. I think he's a heck of a player and someone that is that game maker and can make the game and break players down individually, but also he plays so quick and has just this great vision. It'll be interesting to see if he plays next match, because I was surprised to not see him. But overall, yeah, I thought Thierry Henry did an excellent job of coaching.
I wonder if something's going on with Cherki, because they showed him when they were singing the national anthem, and like every single player was singing it, and he just looked pissed. So I don't know if he doesn't sing it. Maybe that's just what he does. But so I don't want to add anything to it from that perspective. But he just looked upset, and he wasn't in the starting 11, and he didn't get off the bench either. And I agree with you. He's very, very talented. So maybe there's something else that's going on. And that's another sign of Thierry Henry handling the situation. Something to break down.
Jimmy, do I have to remind you about Didier Deschamps when he said he could have an extra player and he didn't take the extra player because he's like, I don't need to deal with another ego. You're dealing with a full team of players who fully think they deserve to be in the starting 11 and think they should be playing every single minute. That's the type of player that you have in France. Everyone wants to play and everyone thinks they have the quality to play. So he is, he's got that attitude that we see from a Diego Luna, that you see from a Kevin Sullivan, players that have
you need a
that
little arrogance.
unique quality, and you want that. So I'm
right.
to an extent that it doesn't take away from the team, but someone who has that edge. So yeah, I think from what Brian said, the perspective of, he was frustrated with the way that the team played, given how the U.S. were set up in that first half. And you expect players to come up with the ideas when a team does sit in the low blocks and clogs the middle, which they didn't do. And then the second half, obviously the team talk helped, because they started to move the ball a little bit different, and Mateta and Lacazette weren't getting in each other's way. So from that standpoint, and you love the substitutions, because I'll tell you right now, Doué, the youngest player on that team, who's 19, came in. What a phenomenal player. And Kali Muendo, who also has had really bright moments in Europe with Rennes. I mean, this is another quality player. So this squad is deep.
You got a squad.
And I think Thierry, you got a 3-0 win out of a mediocre performance, right?
I get it. There's something to be said for that. To be said for that. All right, we're going to take our next break, which is our final break of Call It What You Want. When we come back, we'll get a little preview of our New Zealand game, and we can talk a little bit more about Thierry Henry. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back in to Call It What You Want. Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davis and Brian McBride. And before we get into our preview of New Zealand, and if you guys want to circle back to Thierry Henry, we can do that. But we have all tournament to talk about TT in particular. Diego Luna, we talked about him already, though. He's weighing the option about potentially going to play for Mexico. Instead, his quote says, "I've never closed down any doors." So that's interesting. Right now, Diego Luna was a late add to the MLS All-Star game, so he's in Columbus right now. They're playing Liga MX All-Stars tonight. But here's his full quote. He says, "I've never closed down any doors. For me, it's continuing to perform and who's going to give me the best opportunity. I know there's some changes going on at the Mexican Football Federation, U.S. Soccer too. There are some big changes going on in general, so we'll see what happens there." Interesting. And I understand why he's saying that. Obviously, he wants to be wanted, and he wants to have a real opportunity of cracking into the first team. Brian, your thoughts? I assume you have, your previous job, you were trying to attract dual nationals to play for us, and he's a dual national because he can play for Mexico as well. How would you handle this Diego Luna situation?
Yeah, I mean, you need to get on the phone and basically let him know how much he's thought of by the Federation. And you try and
who does that, Brian? Who's going to be responsible for calling him?
Well,
who's the guy
at this age, at this professional side of it? It would either be the head coach, or it would be, there's no general manager anymore, but it would be the head coach or the general manager. And if someone inside the organization has a relationship with him, which there is, Tony Lepore has relationships with so many guys, as you guys know. And you just want to talk through and help understand what's going on, because that when I first saw the list, that was the first thing that popped in my head. I'm like, you know what? There's no reason for him to not look at other options, because as you guys know, as players, if you aren't thought of the way you think you should be thought of, the other things sort of open up. And so I sure hope that we're on the phone and we're talking and letting them know where we see his pathway. Because I also know from talking in my old job, talking to players and players' families, Mexico is more than willing to get on the phone and make, I won't say promises, but offers that we were never able to do, because we wanted to make sure that players know this is where we see you. This is not where we know you're going to be. And that's an important thing too, because
we're talking like offers like homes and cars and money.
No. Just like
land.
Hey, you're definitely going to be on our national team, right? And we saw that with a few players, and then it didn't happen. And
this This is the problem for me,
Chuck,
Brian.
Chuck, I got to cut you off, buddy. We're at the end of the show. We are done.
We only been out for 49 minutes.
I know we're there because we talked so much about everything else. So
hold on.
that is
it.
This is too short. No, it's too short.
We can maybe keep it going on YouTube, but we got to close out the show as it stands right now.
It's my daughter's 21st birthday. I got to say happy birthday to Ashley. That's why I had this background.
Ashley, happy birthday.
Ashley, happy birthday. Everybody else
where's she going now?
Make sure you join us on Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern. We're going to go live on the Glosso Network and the Glosso America YouTube channel to recap the U.S.'s game against New Zealand. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and we will see you
No, it's too soon.
I know it's too soon. We have too much to talk about. Thank you guys for hanging out with us.
Keep it going on YouTube.